we've been trying to pop the top of this dash off, this cover, and we couldn't get it. We were putting a lot of pressure on it to try and pop it off, and there's got to be something holding it. So we kept looking around, and we finally did see where there are some metal brackets. I don't think I can show you this. So this square metal tubing here runs from side to side. It's the main structural frame behind the dash. There are some metal brackets attached to it that run towards the front of the car, and there's bolts go through that bracket straight up into the dash. We can see one on each side, left and right, that we could get at to take out. There would be no chance of ever getting them back in, and the center of this seems to be holding very tightly. So I suspect there's a couple more in the center area. You can't even see them. So I'm going to try something different. I've put the two screws back in, one here and one down here on both sides, this side and the other side, to stabilize this dash pad again to that metal frame. I've removed the bottom half of the cover off the steering column. It has one T20 Torx bit screw, so that's the position that it's in. There's a Torx bit screw in here. It's a T20. There's a round cover that pops off of that, and there's a 7mm head bolt inside of it. Took those two out. This plastic piece comes off. Next, we're going to undo steering linkage down here, which is up against the firewall in behind your brake pedal. That's the brake pedal right there. There's one Torx bolt that goes in from the side of that. We're going to undo that. Removing the steering column now. 4 bolts. There's one here on each side, and the other two, one of them would be up in there, and another one on the other side of the steering column that would be in the same spot. So take those 4 bolts out. There's a Torx bit right there to loosen off. Unplugged all the electrical connectors that were up here, and hopefully this will lift out. I'm trying to get as much of the dash in view as I can here so you can see everything that we have removed. Center console's gone, glove box, everything in the middle, instrument cluster, steering wheel and column, steering column is now all being removed. So when I bought that part and I asked the guy where it was to change this one, he looked in his computer at the Ford dealership and he said, oh, this is the nasty one to change. It's an 8-hour job. The dash has to be removed. So that's what we have been trying to accomplish. Now, we were just about, after the steering column came out, we were going to unbolt the frame of the dash from the frame of the car and see if this would all come out as one assembly. But when we removed the steering column, I think we've discovered that's as far as we needed to go. The part that we are after to change is that part right there. That screw that has yellow on the head is one of the screws, and can't see the other screw from here. It's tucked around up in this top corner, but I can feel it. So if I can feel that screw, I should be able to get it out. And I believe that's it. Take those 2 screws out, pull that thing straight out. The only other thing we'll have to do, the new motor comes already in a preset position, and we should be able to move the arms on the doors by hand to get that in the same position so it just slides over the drive shaft on the new motor that we're putting in. and then bolt it back in. So you don't have to remove the entire dash, nor do you need to remove 80% of the stuff that we've already removed. Nothing in the center console has to come out. The radio, the heater controls in the center of the dash, glove box, air vents, none of that needs to come out. This would be just as simple as removing the plastic cover under the steering column in front of your knees, which is just pops off by clips, and then removing the plastic above and below the steering column itself. The instrument cluster would have to come out because there are 2 bolts you will need to get at behind it for the steering wheel itself. But that's all very simple stuff to come out. And then there's those 4 bolts I had showed you for the steering column, and the one down behind the brake pedal, which is a T40 Torx bit, and that bolt needs to come out all the way. I thought you could just loosen it off and slide the shaft apart, but you can't. And that's it. Once we've got the steering column out, there's the part we want to change. So this is all of the parts that we have removed. Right down to the whole steering wheel. So that's everything we have removed so far. The only other pieces that are not laying in that pile: instrument cluster, radio display, CD player, and the actual controls for the heater, CD player controls, and your radio and phone controls. That's where the display sits, is in that hole there. So we have those pieces and all of those pieces. And I would say probably 80 to 90% of this did not have to be done. What you can see there that looks like a white gear, that's where the drive shaft on the motor has to go that we are changing. So I've already removed the old motor. Now the new motor, I don't know if you can see, there's one side of that looks a little flat or a little different in shape, and there is a specific spot on the drive shaft of the motor that has to line up with that. And you're not supposed to turn the drive shaft on the motor to try and make it align. So you can move that piece there a little bit with a screwdriver, but I'm finding what's easier, and you see that yellow point right in front of my finger. There's a yellow marker on the end of a piece of plastic there. That's an alignment pin for the motor. So when the motor is in place, that alignment pin will sit in this bottom hole that looks like a plus sign here. That's where the alignment pin will go. So I'm going to try and get that drive shaft just started into that gear, and then use this motor to rotate that gear around until this is in the right position where I can pop it into place on that alignment pin, and then try and get those screws back in it. Okay, so we got the motor back in place. You can see that alignment tab with the yellow markings on the end of it. We've got that back in that hole. These are a number 2 Phillips screw. There's 2 of them. One in the hole right next to the alignment tab, and then diagonally up in the other corner that you can't see from here was the other one. To get it out, I used a number 2 Phillips bit in the end of a socket with a 10-inch I was using a 1/4-inch drive ratchet. I had a 10-inch extension and a 1/4-inch drive swivel on the end of that with the socket. So we're going to use the same tool to see if we can reach up in there and get the screw back in place in that top corner. Just going to get one of these bolts threaded in here by hand for now to keep this from falling down on me. There's a total of 4 bolts that hold it in. That's the easiest one to get to. At the end of the steering shaft, you can see the shaft that it has to go onto. It has a notched groove in the side of the shaft. So you can only get this on one way, and that's going to be where this split is in here. There's a bolt that comes through, and the bolt runs through that groove in that other shaft. So you can't get it in the wrong position. So we're just going to put that in there finger tight for now, and we'll come back to these other bolts and put them in place. So there was the one I put in by hand was right there. There's another located over here on this side. The other two, I'm going to have to use an extension. There's one there, and there's the other one over there on that side. One very important note here, when you're dropping your steering wheel column, notice this steel plate here at the back. It's got 4 torque screws that hold it on, and you need to take those screws out, lift up the plate, and what you'll find in here is this sensor, and it'll be plugged in. It's a very short wire. This is about as far as it reaches, right to this point, and I did not know that, and I broke the plug that goes into here. So after searching for a long time to find out where my broken plug belonged, and came up with this sensor will actually come out. This is the collapsible steering wheel sensor. So I've got the broken piece of the plug out of here, and I'm crazy gluing it, hopefully, back onto the other half of it, and we're going to see if we can reassemble it at all, because I don't want to have to go and buy a wiring harness just to replace this one plug. So very important note to be wary of that, to disconnect all that before you take the actual steering column out.
I will be reassembling what we, took apart, which we didn't need to. So first piece is this trim piece here. I have it in the right position. I think it should just, with a little luck. Clips are lined up. You can look kind of directly down in here. Might be able to see a little bit in here. But yeah, and you should just... There. That's back on. Gonna have to the door rubbers back so it's overlapping it, so it's nice and smooth around the side here, but that's pretty much it for this side. Now to hook up this stuff, we have a bolt here and here that we got to put back in. We've already put the ones on from the sides. There's 2 up here for the airbag and 2 here that are for the glove box. Okay, so put that in, that in. There's 2 bolts up here. There. Now, these 3 plugs have to be plugged in their respective spots. Okay, next is the glove box. First things first, I'm gonna see if I can get close enough to this. Plug it in for you. There, okay, it's plugged in. Now, most of this is just to put back together, it's just clips. Now that's lined up. All it was these clips here. They needed to be aligned. There's a clip here, one down here. But that was pretty much it. So next is these 2 screws. They're 7mm. And then we have to do this stuff here. Okay, I'm not even, just this stuff. This piece was probably the biggest struggle because of this plastic clip here. This has to be put in with a sliding motion here. So see if I can, hang on. This has to be pulled, this has to go in like that, and hang on, there, now it's in. You have to oh, don't forget this, hang on. It would be easier to get a screwdriver and just kind of pry this, but yeah, hang on, I will actually do that. Where's the screwdriver? Screwdriver, yeah. So just kind of run across with a screwdriver maybe and do something like this. There, just kind of run it across. There. This has to go in still, but yeah, just kind of like that. There, that piece is back in. Next we have the kind of a stepping plate, I guess you could call it. It says Fusion on it. And I step out of the car to do this, makes my life easier. So it's really simple. It's just you line it up and there, and same again with those door rubbers. Run a screwdriver around it, makes life easier. Just do it with your hand, that also works. Right, yeah. Okay, and that is done. As you can see, it's coming together, and all we got is these two pieces. Okay. Alrighty, so now these two pieces. This piece is just held in by clips, so you just got to position it in the right spot. Some light pressure against it should just... Okay, this is in. First, the small piece has to go in. I broke a pin here, we'll just loosely put it in and set it up. There, like that. We're going to make sure the rubber is on it. And just lock that in with those clips. This is a little loose, but I think it's okay. And then the big piece here on the side, you just got to line up the clips and put it on. Oops, whoa, hang on. There, I'm lined up over here. There, lined up. Now, this is light hammering. Pretty sure it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. Now, for the center console, and all the instrument panel here, and all the computer stuff, and yeah, which will be a real fun job. Okay, so we've done this, we've done this. Next, the cup holder. I've already plugged in the emergency brake there. Now this needs to come up, and there's slots here that need to be lined up, and then it sets in like that. It's supposed to. Yeah, unsatisfying click there. Now it's working, so this piece is done. Now we still have the side pieces to be put on and the back pieces. Side piece of trim's back on. We have one more piece of side trim here that goes on to that, but we can't do that until we install the computer stuff. The vents and the four-way flasher go in first. There's a plug that you have to plug in, which is what my dad's currently doing. And then I do believe it was the screen, and then the CD player, and then the instrument cluster, like the controls and stuff for it. That's the last piece that's got to go together. There. Okay, now it's in. It's plugged in. There's two plugs on that. Next, the CD player, which has these two, and I think, well, I don't know. I figured it out. So right now, I'm just matching some plugs up here.
Okay, hardware components have been reinstalled, air vents reinstalled. Now it's just some more trim pieces to put on. Oh, sorry, forgot one of the hardware pieces.
Yeah, one of the more important ones. There's that.
Couple of plugs to put back in.
Yeah. There. Most of it's just clips. There are two screws that need to be put in.
They say that if any of that goes, you have to buy that whole thing that we just put on there as one complete unit. They don't sell any individual circuit boards or anything to be replaced in it. Okay, all the face plates are back on. Trim has been snapped back into place. It's all just clips. We have one more section here to snap in. Put that in.
There.
Another trim piece around the gear shift.
Okay. And the side panel.
Yeah, I won't be able to see that side. And the last piece for the center console, final trim piece, is just a little bit of a dress-up material that they use here for the side of it. Yeah.
That's right.
So, most of it's back together. Center console is complete. All the electronics are complete. Glove box, vents are all complete. So we're down to just this area over here on the driver's side. We have that new motor in. So I think the next thing we need to do is put the steering column back in here now.
Okay, so instrument cluster in here, cover for it, it's also put together. You got the light thing here, it's put together. So this was just, the instrument panel was 2 screws in the top, 2 screws in the bottom. This cover, I do believe, was just clips. This light light panel here for all the lights. It's got 2 screws in the bottom, the rest is clips. It's got 2 plugs that plug into it. All that's done. Now all that's left for a plug is this thing, which is a computer fan, I do believe, which hooks up to the wall. It's got a hinge that's hooked up with a couple of screws, I do believe, there. And I think that'll be it.
We're almost to the end of this project. I showed you a screenshot of disarming the airbag system. Now I'll show you rearming the airbag system. So there's A, B, and C for instructions there. And it continues on the top of the next column. Just that little write up right there is a continuation of it. We've got the new part in. Everything's been reassembled. We've tried the air conditioner. The vents changed just the way they should now. We have cold air coming out of the defrost vents. So everything is done. Thank you very much for watching. Join us again. Like, share, and subscribe.